Chapter 7 Production Costs. Chapter Objectives 1. Explain the difference between economic profit and accounting profit. 2. Analyze the relationship between inputs and the resulting outputs for a firm, including the law of diminishing returns. 3. Analyze the relationship between output and total in both total and average costs. 4. Explain the relationship between marginal product and marginal costs. 5. Discuss how long-run average cost curve is constructed as well as how the shape identifies the scale of production. Understanding cost is essential for any company's success. The purpose of this chapter is to study production and its relationship to cost. Suppose you're an electrical engineer who's an expert at designing electronic components for cell phones and other applications. You dream of owning your own company, so you quit your job and invest your savings in starting Cengage, a mythical company. You release factory space, hire employees, and purchase raw materials. In this chapter, and the next 2 chapters, you will follow Camput and learn the basic principles of both production and cost. 7-1 Cost and Profit. A basic assumption in economics is the motivation for business decisions is profit maximization. Economists realize that managers of firms sometimes pursue other goals, such as contributing to a united way or building an empire for the purpose of ego satisfaction. Nevertheless, the profit maximization goal has proven to be the best theory to explain why managers of firms choose a particular level of output or price. To understand profit as a driving force for business firms, we must distinguish between the way economics measure costs and the way accountants measure costs. 7-1a Explicit and implicit costs. Economics define the total opportunity cost of a business as the sum of the implicit costs and the implicit costs. Explicit costs are the payments to non-owners of firm for their resources. In our Camput example, explicit costs include the wages paid to labor, the rented charges of a plant, the cost of electricity, the cost of materials, and the cost of the medical insurance. These resources are owned outside of the firm and must be purchased with actual payments to these outsiders. Implicit costs are the opportunity costs of using resources owned by a firm. These are opportunity costs of resources because the firm makes no actual payments to outsiders. When you start Camptech, you give up the opportunity to earn a salary as an electrical engineer for someone else's firm. When you invested your savings in your own enterprise, you give up the opportunity to earn interest. You also use the building you own the warehouse to warehouse Camptech products. Although you make no payment to anyone, you give up the opportunity to earn rental payments. 7-1b Economic and accounting profit. In everyday use, the word profit is defined as follows. Profit equals total revenue minus total cost. Economics and accountants calculate total cost differently, and as a result, differ in their profit calculations. Accountants consider only explicit costs, so accounting profit is expressed as accounting profit equal to total revenue minus total explicit cost. Economists, on the other hand, consider both implicit and explicit costs, so economic profit can be positive, 0, or negative, and economic loss is expressed as economic profit equals total revenue minus total opportunity cost, or economic profit equal total revenue minus explicit cost plus implicit cost. Exhibit 1 illustrates the importance of the difference between accounting profit and economic profit. Camptech must know how it's doing, so you hire an accounting firm to prepare a financial report. The exhibit shows the Camptech earned total revenue of $500,000 in the first year of operation. Explicit costs for wages, materials, interest, and other payments totaled $470,000. Based on the standard accounting procedures, this left an accounting profit of $30,000. If the analysis ends with the accounting profit, Camptech is profitable, but accounting practice, which does not account for implicit costs, overstates profit. A few examples will illustrate the importance of the implicit cost. Your $50,000 a year salary as an electrical engineer was foregone in order to spend all your time as the owner of Camptech. Also foregone were $10,000 in total income and $5,000 in interest that you would have otherwise earned by keeping your savings in the bank, subtracting both explicit and implicit costs from total revenue. Camptech has economic loss of $35,000. The firm is failing to cover all opportunity costs of using its resources in the economics industry. Thus, the firm's resources would earn a higher return if used in other alternatives. Exhibit 1. Comtech's accounting profit versus economic profit. I'll not go over this, but yeah. How would you interpret a zero economic profit? It's not as bad as it sounds. Economists call this condition normal profit. Normal profit is the minimum profit necessary to keep a firm in operation. Zero economic profit signifies there is just enough total revenue to pay the owners for all explicit and implicit costs. Stated differently, there's no benefit from reallocating the resources to another use. For example, assume an owner earns zero economic profit, including an implicit forfeited cost of $50,000 per year that could have been earned working for someone else. This means the owner earned as much as would have been earned in the next best employment opportunity. Take note. Since business decisions making is based on economic profit rather than accounting profit, the word profit in this text always means economic profit. A mind track? 1. Professor Martinez is considering leaving the university for opening a consulting business. For her services as a consultant, she would be paid $110,000 per year. To open this business, Professor Martinez must convert a house from which she collects rent of $20,000 per year into an office and hire an assistant at a salary of $25,000 per year. The university pays Professor Martinez $75,000 per year. If Professor Martinez leaves the university, her consulting business will earn an economic profit of A. Negative $10,000, which is economic loss, B. $10,000, C. $85,000, D. $158,000. 7-2. Short-run production. Having presented the basic definitions of total costs, the next step is to study cost theory in more detail. We begin by looking at production, that is, the process of which a firm turns resources or inputs into products, output. 7-2a. Short run versus long run. Suppose I ask you, what is the difference between short run and the long run? Your answer might be that the short run is less than a year and long run is more than a year. Great guess, but wrong. Economics do not portation production decisions based on any specific number of days, months, or years. Instead, the distinction depends on the ability to vary the quantities of inputs or resources used in a production. There are two types of inputs, fixed inputs and variable inputs. A fixed input is a resource for which the quantity cannot change during the period of time under consideration. For example, the physical size of a firm's plant and production capability of heavy machines cannot change within the short period of time. They must remain as fixed amounts while managers decide to vary output. In addition to fixed inputs, the firm uses variable inputs in the production process. A variable input is any resource for which the quantity of can change the period of time under consideration. For example, managers can hire fewer or more workers during a given year. They can also change the amount of raw materials and electricity used in production. Now we can link the concepts of fixed and variable inputs on the short run and the long run. The short run is the period of time so short that at least one fixed input. For example, the short run is a period of time during which the firm can increase output by having more workers, variable input, which the size of the firm plant, fixed input, remains unchanged. The firm's plant is the most difficult input to change quickly. The long run is a period of time so long that all inputs are variable. In the long run, the firm can build new factories or purchase new machinery. New firms can enter the industry, and existing firms can leave the industry. Take note, the short run is a period of time so short that there is at least one fixed input, while the long run is a period of time so long that all inputs are variable. 7-2b. The reduction function. Having defined inputs, we can now describe how these inputs can be transferred into outputs using a concept called production function. A production function is the relationship between the maximum amounts of output a firm can produce and the variable quantities of input. An assumption of production function model we are about to develop is that the level of technology is fixed. Technological advances would mean more output is possible from a given quantity of inputs. Exhibit 2a represents a short-run production function for the Eagle Crest vineyard. The variable input is the number of workers employed per day, and each worker is presumed to have equal job skills. The acreage, amount of fertilizer, and other inputs are assumed to be fixed. Therefore, any production model is operating in the short run. Employing 0 workers produces no bushels of grapes. A single worker can produce 10 bushels per day, but a lot of time is wasted when one worker picks those containers and transports the grapes to the winery. Adding a second worker raises the output to 22 bushels per day. Because the workers divide tasks and specialize, allowing the vineyard to more than double the output produced by just one worker. Adding 4 more workers raises the total production to 50 bushels per day. 7-2 C. Marginal product and the law of diminishing returns. The relationship between the changes in total output and the changes in labor is called the marginal product of labor. Marginal product is the change in the total output produced by adding 1 unit of a variable input, with all other inputs used being held constant. With equal increasing labor from 0 to 1 worker, output rises from 0 to 10 bushels produced per day. Exhibit 2. The production function and the law of diminishing returns. Part A shows the total output of bushels of grapes per day increases and the total number of workers increases while the other inputs remain constant. This figures a short-run production, which relates to a single input while all others are fixed. Part B illustrates the law of diminishing returns. The first worker adds 10 bushels of grapes per day, and marginal product is 10 bushels per day. Adding a second worker adds another 12 bushels of grapes per day to the total output. This range of increasing marginal returns after 2 workers, diminishing marginal returns is set in, and the marginal product declines continuously. This increase is the result of the addition of 1 more worker. Therefore, the marginal product of the first worker is 10 bushels per day. Adding the second worker increases the total output of 12 bushels per day. Therefore, the marginal extra product of the second worker is 12 bushels per day. Similar marginal product calculations generate the marginal product curves shown in Exhibit 2b. Note that the marginal product is plotted at the midpoints shown in the table because the change in total output occurs between each additional unit of labor used. A long-established economic law called the law of diminishing returns determines the shape of the marginal product curve. The law of diminishing returns states that beyond some point the marginal product decreases as additional units of a variable factor are added to the fixed factor. Because the law of diminishing returns assumes at least one fixed input, this principle is a short-run rather than a long-run concept. Returning to Exhibit 2, we can identify and explain the law of diminishing returns in our eagle crest example. Initially, the total output curve rises quite rapidly as this firm hires the first 2 workers. The marginal product curve reflects the change in the total output curve and is the slope of the total output curve. As shown in Exhibit 2b, the range from 0 to 2 workers hired is called increasing marginal returns. In this range of output, the last worker hired adds more to total output than the previous worker. Recall that with only 1 worker, that worker had to pick, load containers, and transport the grapes. But with 2 workers, the workers can specialize. Perhaps 1 worker picks while the other loads and transports. This diminishing returns begin after the second worker is hired, and the marginal product has reached its peak. Beyond 2 workers, diminishing returns occur because the marginal product declines. The total short-run assumption guarantees this condition. Eventually, marginal product falls as more workers must share in the fixed quantities of land and other inputs used to produce wine. As a result, marginal product declines. In the extreme case, marginal product could be negative if workers got in the way of each other's way while sharing the fixed inputs. No profit-seeking firm would ever hire workers with 0 to negative marginal product. Chapter 11 explains the marginal labor market in more detail and shows how Comtech decides exactly how many workers to hire. Marginal product measures the change to total output that results from hiring additional workers. Marginal product may increase initially as workers specialize, but diminishing returns will always eventually occur in the short run as workers must share limited fixed inputs. Am I on track? 2. The marginal product of labor curve potentially increases initially as workers are able to specialize, but always eventually decreases in the short run as A. The short run turns into the long run. B. Workers must share inputs. C. The firm is able to expand its plant size. Or D. All of the above. 7-3. Short run cost of production. To make production decisions in either the short run or the long run, a business must decide the costs associated with producing various levels of output. Using CompTech, we will study the relationship between two families of short-run costs and output and the total cost curves and two average cost curves. 7-3A, total cost. Total fixed cost. As production expands in the short run, costs are divided into two basic categories, total fixed cost and total variable cost. Total variable cost, or TFC, consists of costs associated with paying for fixed inputs that do not vary as output varies, that must be paid even if the output is zero. These payments that the firm must make in the short run, regardless of the level of output, even if the firm, such as CompTech, produces nothing, it must still pay the fixed inputs such as rent, interest on loans, property taxes, and fire insurance. Fixed costs are therefore beyond the management's control in the short run. Fixed costs are sometimes referred to as overhead costs. The total fixed cost for CompTech is $100, as shown in column 2, Exhibit 3. Total variable cost. As the firm expands and from zero output, total variable cost is added to total fixed cost. Total variable cost consists of costs associated with paying for variable inputs that are zero when output is zero, and vary as output varies. Examples include wages for hourly workers, electricity, fuel, and raw materials. As a firm uses more input to produce output, its variable cost will increase. Management will influence variable costs in the short run by changing the level of output. Exhibit 3 lists the total variable cost for CompTech in Exhibit 3. Total cost. Given total fixed cost and total variable cost, the firm can calculate total cost. Total cost, or TC, is the sum of total fixed cost and total variable cost at each level of output. As a formula, TC equals TFC plus TVC. Total cost for CompTech is shown in column 4 of Exhibit 3. Exhibit 4A uses the data from Exhibit 3 to construct graphically the relationships between total cost, total fixed cost, and total variable cost. Note that the TVC curve varies with the level of output and the horizontal TFC curve does not. The TC curve is simply the TVC curve plus TFC curve, so the vertical distance between the TC and TVC curves equals the TFC. 7-3B, average and marginal cost. In addition to total cost, firms are interested in the per unit cost, or average cost. Average cost, like product price, is stated on a per unit basis. The last three columns of Exhibit 3 are average fixed cost, AFC, average variable cost, AFC, and average total cost, ATC. These average or per unit curves are also shown in Exhibit 4B. These three concepts are defined as follows. Average fixed cost. As output increases, average fixed cost falls continuously. Average fixed cost is total fixed cost divided by the quantity of output Q produced, written as a formula of AFC equals TFC over Q. Exhibit 3. Short run cost schedule for CompTech. I will not be going over this. Exhibit 4. Short run cost curves. The curves in this exhibit are derived from the plotting data from Exhibit 3. Part A shows the total cost, TC, at each level of output is the sum of total variable cost, TVC, and total fixed cost, TFC. Because TFC curve does not vary with output, the shape of the TC curve is determined by the shape of the TVC curve. The vertical distance between the TC and TVC curves is TFC. In Part B, the marginal cost, MC, curve declines at first, then reaches a minimum that increases as output increases. The MC curve intersects both the average variable cost, AVC, curve and the average total cost, ATC, curve. At the minimum point on each of these cost curves, the average fixed cost, AFC, declines continuously as output expands. AFC is also the difference between the ATC and AVC curves at any quantity of output. As shown in Exhibit 4B, the AFC curve approaches the horizontal axis, or zero, as output expands. This is a TFC, a fixed numerator, is divided by larger and larger output numbers, an increasing denominator. so AFC becomes smaller and smaller. Average variable cost. The average variable cost in our example forms a U-shaped curve. Average variable cost AFVC is the total variable cost divided by the quantity of output produced, written as a formula of ABC equals TVC over Q. The ABC curve is also drawn in Exhibit 4B. At first, the ABC curve falls, and then after an output of 6 units per hour, the ABC curve rises. Thus, the ABC curve is U-shaped. The explanation of the shape of the ABC curve is given in the next section. Average total cost. Average total cost is sometimes referred as the per unit cost. Average total cost is the total cost divided by the quantity of output produced, written as a formula of ATC equals TC over Q, or ATC equals AFC plus AVC. Like the ABC curve, the ATC curve is U-shaped, as shown in Exhibit 4B. At first, the ATC curve falls because its component parts, AVC and AFC, are falling. As output continues to rise, the AVC curve begins to rise, while the AVFC curve falls continuously. Beyond the output of 7 units per hour, the rise in the AVC curve is greater than the fall of the AFC curve, which causes the ATC curve to rise in a U-shaped pattern. Marginal cost. Marginal cost asks how much it costs to produce an additional unit of output. Column 5 in Exhibit 3 is marginal cost. Marginal cost MC is the change in the total cost when one additional unit of output is produced. Stated differently, marginal cost is the ratio of the change in the total cost to a 1 unit change in output, written as a formula of MC equals a change in TC over a change of Q. Changing output by 1 unit at a time simplifies the marginal cost calculations in our ComTech example. Marginal cost data are listed between output levels to show that their marginal cost is the change in total cost of output level changes. Exhibit 4B shows the marginal cost schedule graphically. Note that the marginal cost is plotted at midpoints because the change in cost actually occurs between each additional unit of output. In the short run, our firm's marginal cost initially falls as output expands, eventually reaches a minimum, and then rises, forming a J-shaped curve. The explanation for the shape of the MC curve is given in the next section. Exhibit 5 summarizes the firm's short-run cost relationships. 7-4 Marginal cost relationships. Part B, Exhibit 4, presents 2 important relationships that require explanation. First, we'll explain the role that links the marginal cost curve to the average cost curves. Second, we will return to the marginal cost curve in Exhibit 2B and explain its connection to the marginal cost curve. 7-4A The marginal average rule. Observe that the MC curve in Exhibit 4B intersects both the ABC curve and the ATC curve at their minimum points. This is not accidental. It is a result of a relationship called the marginal average rule. The marginal average rule states that when the marginal cost is below average cost falls. When marginal cost is above the average cost rises. When marginal cost equals average cost is at its minimum point. The marginal average rule applies to grades, weights, and any average figure. Perhaps the best way to understand this rule is to apply it to a non-economic example. Suppose there are 20 students in a class, and each student has a grade point average GPA of 4.0. The average GPA for a class, therefore, is 4.0. Now assume another student has a GPA of 2 joins the class. The new average GPA of 21 students in the class falls to 3.9. The average GPA has pulled down because the marginal GPA of additional student was lower than the average GPA of the other students. Now, suppose we start with a class of 20 students who have a 2.0 GPA and add a student who has a 4.0 GPA. In this case, the new GPA average of the 21 students rises from 2 to 2.1. Thus, the marginal GPA of the last student must be been higher than the average GPA of all students in class before the addition of the new student. Now, consider the MC curve in Part B as Exhibit 4. In the range of output from 0 to 6 units per hour, the MC curve is below the AVC curve, and the AVC is falling. Beyond 6 units per hour, the MC curve is above AVC, and AVC is rising. Hence, the relationship between the AVC and MC curve conforms to the marginal average rule. It follows the MC curve intersects the AVC curve at its lowest point. This analysis also applies to the relationship between the MC and ATC curves. Additionally, the MC curve is lower than the ATC curve, causing the ATC curve to fall until it reaches its minimum. Beginning with 8 units of output, the MC curve exceeds the ATC curve, causing the ATC curve to rise. Exhibit 5. Short-run cost formulas. I will not go over this. 7-4b. Marginal cost mirror image. Since the MC curve determines the shape of the AVC curve and the ATC curves, we must explain the J shape of the MC curve. Exhibit 6 illustrates that the shape of the MC curve is the mirror reflection of the shape of the marginal product MP curve. Comparing parts A and B of Exhibit 6, we can see that the marginal product rises, indicating workers are more productive. The marginal cost of production falls. Similarly, when the marginal cost falls, the workers are less productive, and the marginal cost of production rises. Exhibit 6. The inverse relationship between marginal product and marginal cost. Part A represents the marginal product MP of the labor curve. At first, each additional worker hires adds more to output than does the previous hired worker, as workers are able to specialize and the MP curve rises until maximum is reached. When the second worker is hired, the third worker is hired, the law of diminishing returns sets in, and each additional worker hired adds less output than the previous hired workers. Part B shows the marginal cost MC curve is a J-shaped curve that is inversely related to the MP curve. Assuming the wage rate remains constant as the MP curve rises, the MC curve falls. When the MP curve reaches a maximum of 2 workers, the MC curve is at a minimum. As diminishing return sets in and the MP curve falls, the MC curve rises. As explained earlier in the chapter, the law of diminishing returns is the declining portion of the MP curve, and this range of reduction corresponds to the rising portion of the MC curve. To understand why this relationship exists, we return to the case of the Eagle Crest vineyard, represented earlier in Exhibit 2. Now we can assume that the labor is only variable input and adds the new important assumption that the wage rate is constant at $100 per day. When Eagle Crest hires the first worker, its total output increases to 0 to 10 bushels of grapes per day. As explained earlier, the marginal product is also 10 bushels, and the marginal cost in $10 divided by $10, which is equals $10. When Eagle Crest hires the second worker, total output rises by 12 bushels per day. Hiring this worker increases the firm's total cost by $100, while the marginal product rises to 12 bushels. The marginal cost of the second worker therefore falls to $8.33. This is the minimum point of the MC curve, which corresponds to the maximum point on the MP curve. The third worker hired yields only 11 additional bushels of grapes per day, so the marginal cost rises to $9.09. Thus, diminishing return begins with the third worker, and the marginal cost continues to rise as more workers are hired. Take note, as the marginal product increases and workers are more productive, the marginal cost of production falls. As diminishing returns occur, the marginal product decreases, the marginal cost of production rises. Am I on track? 3. Suppose that your quiz average this semester is 80 after taking 5 quizzes. You have just taken the 6th quiz and received a 90. Which of the following statements best represents the marginal average rule? A. My quiz average will decrease because my marginal quiz grade is less than my average. B. My quiz average will decrease because my marginal quiz grade is greater than my average. C. My quiz average will increase because my marginal quiz grade is less than my average. D. My quiz average will increase because my marginal quiz grade is greater than my average. 7-5. Long-run production cost. As mentioned earlier in this chapter, the long run is the time period long enough to change the quantity of all fixed inputs. As a firm can, for example, build a larger or smaller factory or to vary the capacity of its machinery. In this section, we'll discuss how varying factory size and all other inputs in the long run affects the relationship between production and cost. 7-5a. Long-run average cost curves. Suppose Comtech is making its production plans for the future. Taking a long-run view of the production means that the firm is not locked into a small, medium-sized, or large factory. However, once a factory of a particular size is built, the firm operates in the short run because the plant becomes a fixed input. Take note, a firm operates in the short run when there's a significant time to alter some fixed input. The firm plans in the long run when all inputs are variable. Exhibit 7 illustrates a situation in which there are only 3 possible factory sizes Comtech might select. Short-run cost curves representing these 3 possible plant sizes are labeled Strat CS, Strat CM, Strat CL. SR is the abbreviation for the short run, and the ATC stands for the average total cost. The subscripts S, M, and L represent small, medium, and large plant sizes, respectively. In the previous sections, there's no need to use the SR for short run because we're discussing only short run cost curves and not long run curve costs. Exhibit 7. Relationship between 3 factory sizes and the long run average cost curve. Each of the 3 short run ATC curves in an exhibit corresponds to a different plant size. Assuming there are only 3 plant sizes choices, a firm can choose any one of these plant sizes in the long run. For example, a young firm may operate a small plant represented by the U-shaped short-run average total cost curve, Strat SCS. As the firm matures and demand of its product expands, it can decide to build a larger factory corresponding to either Strat CM or Strat CL. The long-run average cost curve, LRAC, is the green shaded scalped curve joining the short-run curves below the intersections. Suppose Comtech estimates that it will be producing an output level of 6 units per hour for the foreseeable future. Which plant size would the company choose? It will build the plant size represented by the Strat CS because it affords a lower cost of $13 per unit in point A, and then the factory size represented by Strat CM, which has a cost unit of $40 per unit B. What is the reduction? What if production is expected to be 12 units per hour? In this case, the firm will choose the plant size represented by Strat CL. At this plant size, the cost is $30 per unit, point C, which is lower than $40 per unit, point B. Take note, the plant size selected by firm in the long run depends on the expected level of production. Using the 3 short-run average cost curves shown in Exhibit 7, we can construct the firm's long-run average cost curve. The long-run average cost curve, LRAC, curve traces the lowest cost per unit at which a firm can produce any level output after the firm can build at any desired plant size. The LRAC curve is sometimes called the firm's planning curve. In Exhibit 7, the green curve represents the LRAC curve. Exhibit 8 shows that there's actually an infinite number of possible plant sizes from which managers can choose in the long run. As intersection points of the short-run ATC curves move closer and closer together, the lumps in the LRAC curve in Exhibit 7 disappear. With the great variable plant sizes, the corresponding short-term ATC curves trace a smooth LRAC curve in Exhibit 8. Over the range of output when the LRAC curve falls, the energy points are to the left of the minimum point in the short-run ATC curves. As output expands and the LRAC curve rises, the energy points are to the right of the minimum points in the short-run ATC curves. Exhibit 8. The long-run average cost curves with the number of factory sizes and is unlimited. There's an infinite number of possible short-term ATC curves that correspond to different plant sizes. The long-run average cost curve, LRAC, is the green curve tangent to each possible red short-term ATC curves. 7-5B. Scales of reduction. Exhibit 8 depicts a long-term average cost as a U-shaped curve. In this section, we will discuss the reasons why the LRAC curve first falls and then rises when output expands in the long run. In addition, we will learn that the LRAC curve can have a variety of shapes. Note that the law of diminishing returns is not an explanation here, because in the long run, there are no fixed inputs. For simplicity, Exhibit 9 excludes possible short-term ATC curves that touch points along the RAC curve. Typically, a young firm starts small and builds larger plans as it matures. As the scale of operation expands, the LRC curve can follow three different patterns. Over the lowest range of output from 0 to Q1, the firm experiences scales of economics of scale. Economies of scale exist when the long-term average cost curve declines as the firm increases output. There are several reasons for economies of scale. First, a larger firm can increase its division of labor and use specialization. Adam Smith noted in The Wealth of Nations, published in 1776, that the output of the pin factory is greater than one worker draws the wire, a second straightens, a third cuts, a fourth grinds the point, and the fifth makes the head of the point. As a firm expands, having more workers allows managers to break a job into smaller tasks. Each worker, including managers, can specialize by mastering narrowing defined tasks rather than trying to do everything. The classic example of Henry Ford's assembly line, which greatly reduced the cost of producing automobiles. Exhibit 9. A long-run average cost curve with consistent returns to scale. The long-run average cost curve, LRC, illustrates a firm that experiences economies of scale, where the long-run average cost falls as production expands, until the output level Q1 is reached. Between output levels Q1 and Q2, the LRC curve is flat, and there is a constant returns to scale. Beyond output level Q2, the firm experiences diseconomies of scale, and the LRC curve rises. Today, McDonald's trains its workers at Hamburger University, so some workers prepare food, some specialize in taking orders, and few workers specialize in the drive-through window operation. Second, economies of scale result from greater efficiency of capital. Suppose machine A costs $1,000 and produces 1,000 units per day. Machine B costs $4,000, but it's technologically more efficient and has a capacity of 8,000 units per day. The low-output firm will find it too costly to purchase machine B, so he uses machine A, and its average cost is $1. The large-scale firm can afford to purchase machine B and produces more efficiently at a per-unit cost of only 50 cents. The LRC curve may not have a flat or horizontal portion as shown in Exhibit 8, but if it does, it is shown in Exhibit 9. And then between some levels of outputs, such as Q1 and Q2, the LRC curve no longer declines or rises. In this range of output, the firm increases its plant size, but the LRC curve remains flat. Economists call this situation constant returns to scale. Constant return to scale exists when the LRC curve does not change as the firm increases output. The scale of operation is important for competitive reasons. Consider a young firm producing less than Q1 units of output and competing against more established firms producing in the constant returns of scale range of output. The LRC curve shows that the older firm has an average cost advantage. A closer look. Applicable concept. Economies and diseconomies of scale. Why is that website you're using free? Pick the best price that you want to pay for a product. Is zero reserved only for those who believe in Santa Claus? Recall this famous saying by economist Milton Friedman that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, today more and more web companies are using digital technology and principles of free economics to make profits by giving something free of charge. And the key to understanding this radical business model is the concept of economies of scale. How is it possible for companies to cover production costs with a price of zero? Don't web businesses have huge fixed costs to buy computer service and design web pages? This is true, but once the servers are powered up and the sites are online, the marginal cost of logging in each additional customer is very small. Then, as company scales expand, over time, the cost of servers, bandwidth, and software are spread out over millions of users, and the long-run cost curve declines to almost zero, which is the economies of scale. In the webland of Freeman's, the basic idea is to shift from the view of the market price matching buyers and sellers of a product to a free system with many participants and only a few who exchange cash. After customers get used to free services, the company hopes that people will buy more advanced services. Examples of Freeman's are Spotify, Slack, and SourceMonkey. The revenue from the premiums for the more powerful services covers the cost of both the premium and free activities. This is cross-subsidy approach. The legendary example of this marketing strategy is Kingsley, who in the early 1900s was having no success selling mud on the idea of shaving with disposable thin blades rather than the straight razor. The solution was to bundle free razors with gum, coffee, marshmallows, and even a brand new big deposits with the slogan, "Shave and Slave," attached. The freebie razor without blades was useless, so customers bought the blades, and the rest of the sex store is history. Another approach is to use free services to deliver advertising, just like traditional broadcast TV or radio. One company has very successfully applied the advertising approach to freemiums is Google. There's no cost to use a search engine, but the result pages feature sponsored links, which are advertisements paid by websites related to your search items. Google used this model to achieve impressive financial reports. As the firm becomes large and expands output beyond some levels such as Q2 and Exhibit 9, it encounters diseconomies of scale. Diseconomies of scale exist when the long-run average cost curves rises as the firm increases output. A very large-scale firm becomes harder to manage. As firms grow, the chain of command lengthens and the communication becomes more complex. People communicate through forums instead of direct conversations. The firm becomes too bureaucratic and operations bog down, causing the average cost reduction to rise. Steve Jobs, founder of the Apple company, stated that when you're growing too big, you start adding middle management like crazy. People in the middle have no understanding of the business, and because of that, they screw up communications. To them, it's just a job, and the corporation ends up with mediocre people that form a layer of concrete. Ideally, firms want to operate at scale that minimizes the LRC. Operating in diseconomies of scale region can motivate firms to downsize to reduce their costs in order to remain price competitive. On the other hand, if economies of scale can be experienced, firms are motivated to expand output, moving down their LRC curve. Key terms: explicit cost, implicit cost, economic profit, normal profit, fixed input, variable input, short run, long run, production function, marginal product, law of diminishing returns, total fixed cost, total variable cost, total cost, average fixed cost, average variable cost, average total cost, marginal average rule, long run average cost curve, economies of scale, constant returns to scale, diseconomies of scale. Summary: economic profit is equal to the total revenue minus the total explicit and implicit cost. Explicit costs are the payments to non-owners of the firm for the resources. Implicit costs are the opportunity costs of foreign returns to resources owned by a firm. Economic costs can be positive, zero, or negative economic loss. Economic profit is important for decision-making purposes because it includes implicit costs and accounting profit does not. Accounting profit equals total revenue minus total explicit cost. Normal profit is the minimum of profit necessary to keep a firm in operation. A normal profit is the zero economic profit, and it signifies that there is enough total revenue to pay the owners for all explicit and implicit costs. A fixed input is any resource for which the quantity does not change during a period of time under consideration. A variable input is any resource for which the quantity can change during the period of time under consideration. The short run is the period of time during the firm that has at least one fixed input, such as its factory size. The long run for a firm is defined as a period during which all inputs are variable. A production function is the relationship between outputs and inputs. Holding all other factors of production constant, the production function shows the total output as an amount of one input such as labor varies. Marginal product is the change in total output caused by one unit change in total variable input, such as the number of workers hired. The law of diminishing returns states that after some level of output is in the short run, each additional unit of a variable input yields smaller and smaller marginal product. This range of declining marginal product is the region of diminishing returns. Total fixed costs consist of costs that do not vary with the level of output, such as rent for office space. Total fixed cost is the cost of inputs that do not change as a firm changes output in the short run. Total variable costs consists of costs that vary with the level of output, such as wages. Total variable cost is the cost of variable inputs used in production. Total cost is the sum of total fixed costs and total variable costs. Marginal cost is the change in total cost associated with one additional unit of output. Average fixed cost is the total fixed cost divided by total output. Average variable cost is the total variable cost divided by total output. average total cost is total cost divided by output, or the sum of average fixed cost and the average variable cost. The marginal average rule explains that the relationship between marginal cost and average cost. When marginal cost is less than average cost falls. When marginal cost is greater than average cost rises. Following this rule, the marginal cost curve intersects the average variable cost curve and the average total cost curve at their minimum points. Marginal cost and marginal product are mirror images of each other, assuming a constant wage rate. Marginal cost equals the marginal rate divided by marginal product. Increasing returns causes marginal cost to fall, and diminishing returns causes marginal cost to rise. This explains the J-shaped marginal cost curve. The long-run average cost curve, LRC, is the curve drawn tangent to all possible short-run average total cost curves. When the LRC curve declines as output increases, a firm experiences economies of scale. If the LRC curve remains unchanged as output increases, the firm experiences constant returns to scale. If the LRC curve increases as output increases, the firm experiences these economies of scale. Take note, since their business decision making is based on economic profit rather than accounting profit, the word profit in this text always means economic profit. The short run in the period of time is so short that there's at least one fixed variable, while in the long run the period of time is so long that all inputs are variable. Marginal product measures the change in the total output that results from hiring an additional worker. Marginal product may increase initially as workers specialize, but diminishing returns will always eventually occur in the short run, as workers must share limited fixed inputs. As marginal product increases and workers are more productive, the marginal cost of reduction falls. As diminishing returns occur, the marginal product decreases. The marginal cost of production rises. A firm operates in short run when there's insignificant time to alter some fixed input. The firm plans in the long run when all inputs are variable. The plant size selected by firm in the long run depends on the expected level of production. Study questions and problems. See Appendix A for answers to odd-numbered questions. Your instructor has access to the answers for even-numbered questions. 1. Indicate whether each of the following is an explicit cost or implicit cost. A. A manager's salary. B. Payments to Dell for computers. C. A salary forgone by owner of a firm for operating their own company. D. Interest forgone for a loan an owner makes to their own company. E. Medical insurance payments a company makes for its employees. F. Income forgone while it's going to college. 2. Suppose you own a bakery. List some fixed inputs and variable inputs you could use. 3. A. Construct the marginal product schedule for the production function data in Exhibit 10. B. Graph the total output and marginal product curves and identify increasing, diminishing marginal returns. 4. Explain the statement. Total output starts falling when diminishing returns occur. 5. What effect might a decrease in the demand of high-definition televisions have on the short-run average total cost curve for this product? 6. A. Construct the cost schedule using the data from Exhibit 11 for firms operating in the short run. B. Graph the total variable cost and average total cost and marginal cost curves. 7. Explain why the average total cost curve and the average variable cost curve move closer together as output expands. 8. Ace Manufacturing produces 1,000 hamburgers per day. The total fixed cost of the plant is $5,000 per day. The total variable cost is $15,000 per day. Calculate the average fixed cost, average variable cost, average total cost, and total cost at the current output level. 9. An owner firm estimates the average cost is $6.71 and the marginal cost is $6.71 at the current level of output. Explain the relationship between these marginal costs and average total cost figures. 10. What are the short-run effects might have a decline in the demand for economic components for cell phones have on context average total cost curve? Combine check answers. 1A, 2B, 3D. Sample quiz. See Appendix B for answers to sample quiz questions. 1. A firm with $200 million in total revenue and explicit cost of $190 million. Suppose its owners invested $100 million in a company at an opportunity cost of 10% interest per year. What is the firm's economic profit? A. $400 million, B. $100 million, C. $80 million, or D. 0. 2. The units of labor in the production process are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. and consporing total output is 30, 34, 37, 39, and 40, respectively. What is the marginal product for the fourth unit? A2, B1, C37, D39. 3. A situation in which the marginal product of labor declines as more labor is hired is called the law of A. Negative response, B. Inverse return to labor, C. Diminishing returns, D. Demand. 4. Which of the following is true if the total variable cost is rising? A. Average cost is increasing, B. Marginal cost is less than average variable cost, C. Marginal cost is greater than average variable cost, D. Average cost is constant. 5. If the marginal product points on all possible short-run average total cost curves becomes successfully lowered as quantity of output increases, A. The firm should try to produce less output, B. Total fixed costs are constant along the LRC curve, C. There are economics of scales, D. The firm is probably having significant management problems. 6. A young chef is considering opening his own sushi bar. To do so, he would have to quit his current job, which pays $20,000 per year, and take a store building that owns and currently rents to his brother for $6,000 per year. His expenses for the sushi bar will be $50,000 per year for food and $2,000 for gas and electricity. What is his explicit cost? A. $26,000, B. $66,000, C. $78,000, D. $52,000. 7. The economist left her $100,000 a year teaching position to work full-time in her own consulting business. In the first year, she had total revenue of $200,000 and business expenses of $150,000. She made an A. Implicit profit, B. Economic loss, economic profit received, or D. Accounting loss but not economic loss. 8. Which of the following best describes total fixed cost? A. Change in total cost when additional unit of output is produced, B. Total cost divided by the quantity of output produced, C. Total variable cost divided by the quantity of output produced, D. The costs that do not vary as output varies. 9. A farm can produce 10,000 bushels of wheat per year with 5 workers, and 13,000 bushels with 6 workers. What is the marginal product of the 6th worker in this farm? A. 2,000 bushels, B. 3,000 bushels, C. 500 bushels, D. 23,000 bushels. The law of diminishing returns applies to which of the following segments of the marginal product of the labor curve? A. The entire curve, B. The downward sloping segment only, C. The upward sloping segment only, D. The point where labor input is 0. 11. Which of the following is true at the point where the diminishing returns set in? A. Both marginal product and marginal cost are at a maximum, B. Both marginal product and marginal cost are at a minimum, C. Marginal product is at maximum and marginal cost is at a minimum, D. The marginal product is at a minimum and the marginal cost is at a maximum. 12. In the long run, total fixed cost, A. falls, B. rises, C. is constant, D. doesn't exist. 13. Which of the following is considered a fixed cost of operating an automobile? A. Gasoline, B. Tires, C. Oil changes, D. Maintenance, E. Registration fees. 14. Which of the following is an example of a fixed cost for a fishing company? A. The cost of hiring a new fishing crew, B. The fuel cost of running the boat, C. The monthly loan payment on the boat, D. The supply of nets, hooks, and fishing lines. 15. The decreasing portion of the firm's long-term average cost curve is attainable to A. Increasing marginal cost, B. Economies of scale, C. Diseconomies of scale, constant, or D. Constant returns to scale. 16. The economies of scale exist over the range of output for which of the long-run average cost curves is A. Constant, B. Falling, C. Rising, D. None of the above. 17. Assume that the marginal cost and the average variable cost curves are U-shaped. At the minimum point of the ABC curve, marginal cost must be A. Greater than the average variable cost, B. Less than the average variable cost, C. Equal to the average variable cost, or D. At its minimum. 18. By filling in the blanks in Exhibit 12, the total cost of producing 0 pieces is shown to be equal to A. 0, B. 100, C. 5, D. 105, or E. 95. 19. By filling in the blanks in Exhibit 12, the fixed cost of producing 6 pieces is shown to be equal to A. 100, B. 150, C. 200, D. 185, or E. 85. 20. By filling in the blanks in Exhibit 12, the average variable cost of producing 4 pieces is shown to be equal to A. $10, B. $15, C. $20, D, $40, or E, $85. By filling the blanks in Exhibit 12, the average total cost for producing 5 pizzas is shown to be equal to A, $12, B, $15, C, $32, D, $85, or E, $160. By filling the blanks in Exhibit 12, the marginal cost of the 4th pizza is shown to be equal to A, $10, B, $15, C, $17, D, $23, or E, $40. 23. In Exhibit 12, which firm's long-run average cost curve experiences constant returns to scale? A from A, B from B, C from C, or D from A and B, C. 24. Which firm in Exhibit 13 displays a long-run average cost curve that with the diseconomies of scale beginning at 2,000 units of output per week? From A, from B, from C, or D from A and C. 25. Which firm in Exhibit 12 displays a long-run average cost curve with economies of scale throughout the range of the output shown? From A, from B, from C, or D from A and B.